I have received from Anne-Marie Bonwick and also Anne Hunter and her team in Democratic Services, and of course our Chief Executive, Andy Coldrick. This has enabled me to carry out my duties in what I hope has been a satisfactory manner. Finally, I'd like to thank my husband, Joseph Clark, for his support. I have thoroughly enjoyed my representational duties, carrying out about 390 engagements during these 2 years. I'm saying about because there were some last-minute engagements. I'm pleased that I have been able to contribute to the networking project between local charities and businesses through my speed dating events. These events have offered charities the opportunity to identify better ways of improving their cost effectiveness and general know-how through partnerships with local firms. At a time when our council's ability to support local charities has been restricted by fiscal restraints placed on the council by central government. Finally, I am grateful to the people of Wokingham Borough and to the many local businesses who have supported my chosen charities during my 2 terms of office. Last year, it was Building for the Future, supporting disabled children. And this year, in association with More Arts, supporting teenagers with creative talents through, among other things, scholarships. I am delighted to report that my charity this year will benefit to the extent of £11,868.82. Thank you very much. I now like to welcome 2 new members, Laura Blumenthal and John Jarvis. Would you like to stand up, please? I hope you will enjoy your time at the Borough Council, and we are looking forward to working with you. Thank you. I now would like to nominate a new mayor. And I propose my deputy mayor, Perry Bath. I propose Perry Bath because he has been an outstanding deputy mayor, attending functions with me and standing in for me. He will be a great asset to the council, a great ambassador. So I'm asking for somebody to second this. Councillor Baker, would you like to speak? No. Do we have any other nominations? No?
Thank you. Then it's my pleasure to announce that Councillor Perry Bath be elected as Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council for the 2015-16 municipal year.
The new mayor will now sign the book, but before he do so, I have some gifts and flowers I'd like to present. So the flowers are for Anne-Marie. Thank you very much for everything, Anne-Marie.
One more. Big smiles.
also like to give a gift to my husband, who has been a fantastic support. Would you like to come forward?
So the Mayor and Deputy Mayor are adjourned to the parlour and will return.
Please rise for his worship for the Mayor.
Thank you. Please be seated. I, Govinda Singh Bhatt, having been elected to the office of Mayor of Woking Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Fellow members, thank you for your wonderful support in the run-up to my nomination and my subsequent election. By electing me as Mayor, you have bestowed upon me a great privilege and a great honour. I thank you most sincerely. I would like to thank the outgoing Mayor, Councillor Ulla Crean-Clark, for her support and guidance during my time as Deputy Mayor over the last 12 months. She made me feel very special and comfortable in dealing with high-profile engagements. We say she will be a hard act to follow. I say she will be an extremely hard act to follow. She's been kind, supportive, and immensely straightforward with me. So I say, Councillor Clark, thank you. As Deputy Mayor over the last 12 months, Councillor Clark allowed me to perform 37 significant mayoral engagements and chair 2 full councils. It was indeed a great honour, privilege, and a learning exercise to perform these engagements. Chairing my first full council was scary, but all the members and our Chief Executive, Democratic Services, made my difficult task very easy. I also take this opportunity to thank my wife and consort Surinder, who has been most supportive. Without her support, I'm sure I would not have been this successful. I also thank Anne-Marie Bonwick, who was most supportive during the last 12 months in guiding me for my engagement. Thank you. May I also now thank some prominent members of the Sikh community, friends and supporters gathered in the viewing gallery. Thank you for all your support. I know you guys had asked for the bar to be opened in the viewing gallery, but I think it was vetoed. As most of you are aware, I was born in Punjab in India. This northern state of Punjab is the breadbasket of India. Coming from a humble farming family, I now feel even more humbled and privileged to be the Mayor of Wokingham Borough, which also has deep-rooted farming links. As such, I feel very much at home. As Mayor, I will endeavour to serve with pride and humbleness, acting as an ambassador for Wokingham Borough Council within the wider community and business world within the borough. I will spread the ambassadorial message of the Council's priorities that Wokingham Borough is a great place to live and even a better place to do business. Yes, Councillor Clark, as you always suggested, I will not forget to enjoy myself whilst performing these duties. I therefore look forward to serving as Mayor over the next 12 months, enjoying the borough's mayoral responsibilities with a great deal of pride and joy. About my chosen charity, few things are more important than the emotional health and well-being of our children and young people. This has been identified as a priority in both the Children's Strategic Partnerships and in the Health and Wellbeing Board. I'm delighted, therefore, to announce that the Mayor's charity for this municipal year will be ARC, a charity doing great work providing counselling and support to many young people and parents right across the borough. I hope you will agree they deserve our support. And finally, after the meeting finishes, just before I aim to finish before 9 hopefully, I would like to invite all members here present, please, to join me for a celebratory drink in the boardroom. Thank you. I'd like to now put a ribbon on the Mayor's consort, please. And I've also got presentations to the ex-mayor or the outgoing mayor as well, please.
Very much.
That's a big problem.
I'd now like to move on to ask for nominations for Deputy Mayor, please. Councillor Clark, would you like to speak now?
Thank you. I would like to propose Councillor. It's most hard to come down here, yes.
Thank you. Would I have a second? Second, please. Keith, would you like to speak now? Okay, thank you. Councillor Ferris, thank you very much for your words. Would you like to speak now?
Thank you. I'm more than happy to second Bob. He's a personal friend of mine. I think he'll do an excellent job.
Are there any other nominations? Can I now ask for a vote for Bob Pitts, please? Councillor Bob Pitts. Thank you. Carried.
I'm pleased to announce that Councillor Bob Pitt be elected as Deputy Mayor of Woking Borough Council for the 2015-16 municipal year.
Can I now invite Councillor Bob Pitts to come to that? Can I ask Val to come forward, please?
having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Well, my immediate reaction is, what have you done? But thank you for putting your trust in me. I'm really honoured, and as Parry said, I will do my best to uphold the values of the council and to represent it according to the best of my ability. And I look forward to this next year. Thank you very much indeed.
Can I now ask the visitors now, please, to retire, and if you wish to stay longer, join the mafia in the gap, in the viewing gallery. Members, the minutes, unfortunately the minutes that were included in the agenda were incorrect and are ones that have previously been agreed by the council. Therefore we will not be agreeing any minutes tonight, and we'll consider two sets at the next council meeting. Move on to agenda item 4, which is apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have apologies from Councillor Ashwell, Councillor Halsall, Councillor Holton, Councillor Ray, Councillor Singleton, Councillor Soane and Councillor Stanton.
Thank you. Can we have any declarations of interest, please? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the public question time. We are putting aside 30 minutes for this. We won't be needing 30 minutes, but supplementary questions will be allowed. Can I ask Narendra Bahuka to ask her question, please? I beg your pardon. Sorry, my sincere apologies. Please ask your question.
This year has been a substantial increase in the number of entry-level infant school places in early, particularly in the middle of maiden early. We represent parents who live in the small triangle between Aldrington, Loudon and Hogland schools, all of which are within few minutes walk and whose children were unable to secure a school place at our catchment or preferred schools. You identified the requirement for an increase and have extended Hogland School to meet part of that perceived need. Due to high level of demand for good education for our children and the effect this is having on local demographics, more places are required than first anticipated. Numbers are unclear, but we understand that virtually another form of entry may be required. What action can you take to alleviate our concerns as parents, and what assurances can we have that suitable places will be found for us within reasonable walking distance of our homes?
Press your microphone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. McAleer, for your question. Historically, school place planning, in particular for primary schools, was completed on an annual cycle, as you may recall from the past. This led to an over-reliance on bulge classes and responses to initial parent offers. This led to less sustainable and planned school estate and various drains on the dedicated school grant. Our primary strategy for 2013 to 2016 set a more strategic approach and helped to successfully resolve school places issues identified priority areas throughout the borough. Our primary school strategy was due to be refreshed for this autumn, and we're pleased to report that we're already ahead of schedule in developing our refresh strategy. Subject to the ongoing work around the refresh, I anticipate that additional capacity will be required to meet local demand for places in September 2016. However, we expect fewer children in the year 2017 reception year across the borough because of a fall in local birth rate, as well as in national birth rate as well. And that's the children that are born in the year 2012-13. The refresh will therefore consider the case for a permanent school expansion in light of this change and other evidence as well presented. Officers will work with local schools, members and the community to develop the best ways forward to address these issues. Part of the challenge then and now relates to the popularity of early schools, particularly with Reading as opposed to working residents. White Knights and early St Peter's are relatively lacking in popularity with working residents. 26 and 30 first preferences, respectively, from working and borough parents when both can take 60 and 70 school children in reception year. If not chosen, these school places are then offered to children living in Reading Borough, where parents have expressed a preference for these schools. This has meant that early places were not available for children living in Early. If we could encourage early parents to consider these two schools more, then this would have made an impact this year and potentially made fewer diverts this year. For this year admissions, 29 children from across Early have been offered places at schools in adjoining areas. This number will, though, change between now and September, when the new academic year starts, as waiting lists clear and individual family circumstances change. And we have had experience of this with our schools in Woking when we had this a couple of years back, and this does genuinely happen. Offers have been made to well-resourced schools for those parents, and obviously I believe that you're one of those in this situation. We offered permanent places in areas that adjoin Early. Where these are beyond walking distance will help parents to get their children there. The average home to school distance in terms of radial distance to a diverted school is 1.9 miles, and in terms of the actual range can be just over 3 miles. Senior officers have met and will be meeting again any early parent who wishes to over the next few weeks to explore all of the options, and if you haven't already met,
I was there. I did meet.
Yeah.
Fine.
Then of course you're welcome to meet them again. Officers will also continue to support parents in providing regular updates on the waiting list, and also supporting parents on admissions and other inquiries. This afternoon also I can report that a delegation of Conservative members from Early who are here this evening in the Chamber have also met with officers and have resolved to set up a task and finish group to review this matter as well for this year and both for next year as well, where there's also an increase in the numbers before the drop-off again in birth rate.
Councillor, thank you. Mr. Melford, do you have the supplementary?
Yes. Given the council has access to the borough's data on number of children claiming free 15 hours of registered EYFS childcare, how and why has this data not been utilized to correctly predict the number of reception school places required within the same area, which now leaves Early with approximately 30 children without a school place in their own community?
Thank you very much for your supplementary question. It is very difficult to triangulate exactly all of the data, but we use lots of different factors to find out exactly where we think all of the children will be coming into our school places. But it is not an exact science, but we are one of the authorities who lead on this, and we are extremely good at getting this data right. But this year has seen a change in what we were expecting. We use birth data, but also we're asking health visitors as well for their data as well, because they go and do 2-year-old checks. we can also use data like you've suggested. But the problem is that we also have inward migration and also people selling their homes as well. And in different areas, it varies right across the borough. So it is not an exact science, and you can get changes that have these different occurrences which aren't predicted. So I'm sorry about that, and I'm sorry that this has affected you and your family.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, Clive Jones, for your question, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'd like to congratulate you on becoming Mayor, and I hope you have a very good year. My question is to John Kaiser. In June of 2014, the Liberal Democrat Roads Minister, Susan Kramer, gave Wokingham Borough Council an extra £728,000 to fix potholes in the borough, enough for over 10,000 potholes. Can you tell me how much of this money has been spent in each ward fixing potholes and how much remains to be spent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your question. I'm somewhat surprised you didn't use Baroness Kramer at Richmond Park's proper title. She must be an exceptional person. She was elevated to the Lords after 5 years as an MP, being beaten by a Conservative on the second standing. The other issue is the money was allocated, no doubt, after some form of consultation within the government, and I can only assume this would have included some Conservative input or sign-off along the way. It is not although it was her own money, but no doubt she could have afforded it, having been a Vice President of American Bank, before becoming a Lib Dem MP, then a Baroness, and that failed. And I believe she also voted against your policy on elected second chamber. I don't know why. Now to the answer. All the money has been spent, although a small element of the costs have yet to be finalised with the contractor. Central government was anxious to avoid monies being spent on temporary pothole repairs instead favouring permanent repairs as first choice. The programme generally comprised small patching and larger surface work where numerous localised small repairs plug-in might have been funded to the order of 10,000 potholes, but permanent repairs were made wherever possible. Where a number of defects existed in a road, it occasionally resulted in larger scale patching or resurfacing of sections of road, something that the revenue budget does not always allow for. The borough's highways are not generally defined by wards, but they do have a parish element in their designation. Of course, roads do cross parish boundaries. And the list of the spend is as follows. Arborfield, £9,951. Barkham, £13,555. Charville, £6,312. Early, £136,637. Finch Hampstead, £196,000, 420. Hurst, 2,375. Remenham, 4,596. Ruscombe, 2,523. Shinfield, 46,057. Sonning, 1,716. Swallowfield, 60,932. Twyford, 3,544. Wargrave, 18,530. Winnersh, 16,328. Wokingham, £111, 650. Wokingham without, £76,000, 76,818 pounds. And Woodley, 20,362. I have actually not put the pence in for you, but if you'd like to see me afterwards, I'll give you. Thank you. Mr. Jones, do you have something else?
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for confirming that all the money has been spent and the history lesson at the beginning wasn't required.
It's almost like thank you. Thank you. I believe praise should be given where it's necessary. Does anybody wish to hand in a petition? Thank you. Agenda item A, to report of the returning officer. Can I Can I ask for a proposer and a second, please? Seconder? John? Pauline, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and could I also join everybody else in congratulating you very much and wishing you a good year. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I'd like to propose the report of the Returning Officer, Parliamentary Borough and Parish Elections on the 7th of May. And in doing that, I'd like to particularly thank Andrew Moulton, Alison Wood and the electoral team for running a really good service over the period. It was very stressful. There were a large number of parliamentary ballots. There was a borough council election and there were also town council elections. There were a large number of postal votes that arrived on the night of the count, just before the polls closed, and that made the whole thing very complex. The parliamentary count didn't finish until 6 o'clock in the morning, and we then proceeded to do the borough and town counts on the Saturday. I think they did an excellent job. I'd like to thank them very much. There is always room for improvement, however, and all councillors will get an email asking for feedback on anything they think could be done better next time. So I'd like to propose that.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Yes,
Just a very short comment. I may not have liked the results, but I did like the service provided by this council in administering the elections, which I've already thanked them privately for and would like to thank them publicly because I think they did an extremely good job and much better than any of our neighbouring councils.
Absolutely.
particularly
Maidenhead. Well, couldn't be worse than Reading.
Councillor Kaiser, would you like to speak now? Does any other member wish to speak? Okay. So, Pauline's proposal, can I have a vote on that, please? All in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Carried. Just one prominent mayor's announcement. You will please note with sadness that we've lost John Bingham, passed away, and he was an independent person and a noted person. The funeral arrangements are being made, and if anybody wishes to attend, Andrew will be more than happy to accommodate that. Thank you. We move on to statements from the leader of the council and executive members. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to add my many thanks for actually what is a very, very momentous occasion for this council. You're the first, as far as I'm aware, you are absolutely the first Sikh mayor that we've had. And I think that is really groundbreaking, so congratulations. I'd also like to welcome Laura and John to the chamber. I'm sure they're going to be in for an interesting time as they learn the ropes as we go through. So before I talk about my executive for the coming year, I'd like to make a few comments on the recent triple election. Due to the parliamentary elections, many of us had a direct exposure of more than one local authority. Inevitably, this leads to a comparison of each authority on their ability to run elections. I can say, based on my experience, and I believe of others, and Prue has sort of reinforced that earlier, is that Wokingham is far ahead of these other authorities in the key areas of things like resident interaction and the ability to run a complex operation. On behalf of all residents and candidates, I'd like to put on record our extreme thanks to Andrea Moulton, Alison Wood and her team for their sensitivity to residents' issues, their general helpfulness and a fantastically smooth operation. I know that our neighbouring authorities could certainly learn a lot from them. I keep on telling them that time and time again. What happened on May the 7th was exceptional, and the resulting success for the Conservative Party was a crystal clear endorsement of our policies, both nationally and locally. Let me highlight just one of these local policies. For the second year in a row, the Liberal Democrats had as a key election message opposition to the regeneration of the town centre, especially around Elms Field. Again, for the second year in a row, their views were totally rejected by the electorate. Last year, the Liberal Democrats dismissed the results, saying that the low turnout meant it was not a true reflection of residents' views, as so many people did not vote. Clearly, with turnouts being above 70% in all town and borough wards, they cannot use that excuse this time. In fact, the rejection of their views on the town centre regeneration was emphatic by a huge margin. Just looking at the wards within the Wokingham town shows how much that rejection actually was. For the borough, the Conservatives had 48% of the vote, compared to the Liberal Democrat vote of 23%. A similar comparison of the town elections was not as easy, as the Liberal Democrats only managed to nominate 3 out of the 25 candidates required. They were all standing in one ward, leaving 7 wards without a single Liberal Democrat candidate. So much for their passion to defend Elms Field. However, there were other candidates, so using them as the opposition, the Conservatives had 52% of the vote, whilst the opposition had 36% of the vote. I hope now that the Liberal Democrats will accept this comprehensive rejection of their regeneration views and actually work with us going forward. Councillor Bray often lectures us in this chamber that we do not listen to residents' views. They have a great opportunity in the opposition leader's speech, which follows this, to demonstrate that they do actually listen. They can do this by acknowledging that residents do want regeneration, including Elms Field, to go ahead as soon as possible, and that they will cease their total opposition and instead work with us to refine and improve the plans. Now let me turn to my executive, including the deputies. I can announce that there is no change in the executive, either in the membership or their portfolios. There are a couple of changes in the deputy positions, with Councillor Holsall taking on the deputy role for Highways and Planning from Councillor Richards. My thanks to Councillor Richards and his predecessor, Councillor Singleton, for their efforts over the last year. I've also reviewed the role of the Deputy for Communications and have decided that this is no longer needed. The next year is going to be a difficult but interesting one. We do not know what the financial landscape is going to look like. The one certainty is that money will be short. Remember, we are the lowest funded authority in the country. Notwithstanding that, we'll do our utmost to make the savings required whilst protecting key services. On the economic development front, the introduction of a deputy focusing on this area is beginning to get some traction, both in the wider area through the LEP and more locally through assisting business startups. In the next year, we will build on this and keep that momentum going. I have already spoken at length about the town centre regeneration, but there are other aspects to this portfolio. Community development and the voluntary sector have not had much focus over previous years, so I wanted to change this going forward. The Deputy for Regeneration now has a specific role with the voluntary sector. The initial objective over the next year is to provide Council with better visibility of the voluntary and community activities across our borough. This third sector plays a vital part in many of our residents' lives and needs to be recognised, supported and developed. Education is extremely important to both residents and the Council and will continue to have a strong focus on this coming year. We will build on our strengths and formal partnerships to raise awareness understanding changing patterns of the needs of children and young people and effectively meet them. We will improve emotional health services in partnership with HELP by leading with the police, the Safeguarding Children's Board, child sexual exploitation strategy, and deliver an integrated and holistic offer for children with special needs and disability. The school in the south, scheduled to open in September 2016, is progressing well, with great involvement from parents, residents and providers alongside the council. We expect to hold a strategic review of primary places, which has already been mentioned, throughout the borough with a view to build potentially several new primary schools over the next few years. As most of you know, we have the highest car ownership in the country, which means we have to build extra capacity through new roads. The next year will see the projects for the 6 new roads being progressed. This will include extensive consultation, as already carried out on a couple of them, to help us shape the roads both in terms of location, but also in terms of design. The 2 new park and ride facilities should be completed, and the Greenways project linking cycleways and footpaths will be progressed. From an environmental perspective, the impact of flooding will be a major focus this coming year. This will include a flooding action plan, plus flood relief for the A327. The other major areas will be our country parks, with a country park strategy being completed as well. Whilst these are all outward-facing activities, the constant drive to improve internal services will continue. This will cover things like improved access to services and better responsiveness to residents. We will investigate every opportunity to save money through shared services with other local authorities. Transparency and governance for our companies will continue to be improved as we move into a different phase of their evolution. Finally, I would like to say that these are only the highlights of our plans for the coming year. If you wish to find out any more, please do not hesitate to contact the relevant executive member. Thank you for listening.
Councillor Baker, thank you. Can I ask now the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Couvray, please to speak?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to congratulate both you and your deputy on your new positions, and we look forward to many exciting council meetings under your control. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we know the elections earlier this month were not kind to the Liberal Democrats, and locally, Dee Tomlin and Kay Gilder, 2 long-serving and diligent councillors, lost their seats. I would like to pay tribute to them for all their hard work on behalf of residents for over 20 years, and they did not deserve to lose. The Conservatives gained 2 seats. I was going to say they shouldn't assume this means residents endorse everything they do, but clearly Cleith believes that's exactly what it proves. How people voted in the local elections had more to do with national politics and fear of a Labour SNP government than it did with local issues. You may pretend all you like, the wide world knows. Dee and Kay lost their seats not because of anything they had done as local councillors, but because of the general election. Now, it is clear that the election results are going to encourage the Conservatives on this council to think they can do whatever they like. Keith's speech seems to indicate that's exactly what they do think. We know there is considerable opposition to the council plans for Wokingham Town Centre, but contrary to what Keith said, we have never opposed regeneration per se, and neither do the majority of residents. We recognise that something has to happen to the town centre, and we have said that over and over again, so please do not misrepresent our position. We do not agree with building on Elmsfield, and neither do a large section of the population. But no doubt you are going to continue with it, and you know, that's your prerogative, but the manner in which you do it could be a little bit more gracious than you have shown so far this evening. You did, however, Keith, skip over the relatively good performance by the Lib Dems in Wokingham Town, and neglected to mention that the Conservatives actually lost 3 town council seats, 2 to the Independents and 1 to Liberal Democrat. We will continue to fight hard to protect Elmsfield and the other things that we think are wrong with your plans. We will continue to oppose in the coming year. We also know a lot of people are unhappy with the state of the roads, with the traffic, the parking, highways generally, that they have significant and justified concerns about the high level of congestion on the roads in our borough and about the routes of the proposed new roads. These concerns are reflected in our casework and in the calls and emails we get from residents. You can therefore expect us to continue to fight hard for something better on highways issues this year. Now, I've referred to the fact it would be a mistake to think that gaining 2 seats from the Liberal Democrats was a ringing endorsement for the way the Conservatives are running this council. But it would also be a mistake to think the results of the elections means that the Lib Dems are finished as a political party, either locally or nationally. Party membership nationally and locally has risen by about 1/3 since polling day. These are new people, not former members who have rejoined. Why have they come forward now? Because the election results have made them recognise the need to stand up for liberal values, now more than ever. Because like the councillors in this Liberal Democrat group, they believe in liberalism, in tolerance, in freedom, humanity and community. They believe that civil liberties matter, that society should look after its vulnerable and disadvantaged, and that, as it says in the preamble to our party constitution, that no one should be enslaved by poverty, ignorance or conformity. We may be fewer in number this year, but we know what we stand for, and we are fully prepared to carry on fighting for what we believe in. And I look forward to what promises to be an interesting year.
Councillor Perry, thank you. Moving on to member question time, I only have one question, I think that's from Councillor Gary Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask a question standing in my name.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Just before I answer, I would agree, Prue, I didn't talk about Oakham Town Council. Neither did I talk about Woodley Town Council, where they lost, where your friends, the Liberal Democrats, lost 10 out of 11 seats. So we now control it 24-1, which is quite a turnaround in 2 years. But I didn't mention that either. So thank you for your question, Gary. As you correctly state, this issue entails the work of a number of our teams. I can confirm that I'm working closely with everyone involved, and I'll make sure you are kept up to date as things progress. Before I get to the specific incident, I'd like to make some general comments about ignoring a tree preservation order, or a TPO as we all know it as, and cutting down that tree can only be considered as an act of outright vandalism. There is a reason why a TPO is on a tree, as it will be an exceptional specimen of that type of tree and needs to be preserved for all to see, the amenity value of it. Almost without exception, the tree will be a mature sample, which means it will be a big tree. Too often people who do this simply laugh at the law, as a fine will be derisory, and all they need to do is to plant a sapling as a replacement, which will be tiny in comparison to the original tree. As leader, I'm already urging all the relevant sections involved to prosecute any future perpetrators to the maximum allowable by law. Even then, it will be totally unsatisfactory, as it will take generations for any replacement planting to reach the same quality of the tree that's been cut down. However, that is a deficiency in the law rather than the council. So now let me turn to this specific incident. The tree, correctly, was covered by a TPO, and a tree replacement notice has been prepared and served on the private landlord to secure an appropriate replacement. Unfortunately, the hedge that has been removed was not protected. The fence that has been erected on the land is actually within public highway. So we have written to that person who erected the fence requesting its removal from highway land. The gate allowed access to an open area beyond the property. The removal of the gate does not need permission from the council. If the replacement of the gate with a fence restricts residents' access generally, this is a private matter between these individuals, as again, unfortunately, there is no public right-of-way over this land. However, a number of different sections of the council have worked together to establish the above position, and the coordination of the issues rests within the Head of Development Management and Regulatory Services. Any action taken will include the council's own legal team, obviously. This will ensure that there's a coordinated approach to address all of the issues, and you as a local member and the relative executive members will be kept informed of progress. Thank you.
Councillor Baker, thank you. I'm moving on to the political balance report. Apologies, Gary. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. You say cutting down a TPO tree is an act of vandalism, and I would agree with that, because in my opinion, in this case, it is a case of environmental vandalism on an epic scale, the like which I've never seen or heard of before in 50 odd years I've lived in Berkshire. It was a much loved tree. It was 40 foot high with a superb canopy with a TPO on it, and it was set against the backdrop of a fabulous deep 14 foot established rural hedge that stretched for several hundred yards. My reason for specifically asking you the question was to ensure that the involved departments all came together. But this has not really happened, because on May the 5th I got an email from an officer which suggested we might wish to secure replacement planting. This would give us a more certain result with less expense to the public purse than a prosecution. In your last paragraph you say I'll be kept informed of progress, yet I reported this matter on the 24th of February, and I've had some contact with one particular officer, but nothing from anybody else that you referred to in your answer. The TPO, as I said, the tree was well over 40 foot tall and it's been removed. And the question would be, what actions are available to us now, over and above what you suggest? What action is there to deal with the removal of the fence? You say nothing can be done. The pile of logs from the felled tree would indicate an amount of tree removed which would require a Forestry Commission permitted licence, which I did bring to the attention of the council. Did the council go to the Forestry Commission and suggest that this tree required a commission licence to fell it? Will the fence, you do say the fence will be removed and replaced, but obviously nothing will be there to restore the two access gates, which actually went from highway land to highway land. They do not involve private land. And what action will be taken against the company who cut down the TPO tree? They do have an involvement as this. What message does this send out to residents, and more importantly, when we are building 13,300?
Point of order, Chairman. Point of order, Chair. Point of order. Chair, I've counted 5 supplementaries at this point.
What message does this send out to the authority when in reality it appears we do nothing when a TPO tree is cut down? I believe the council will be acting this way, where the public purse is more important than environmental vandalism, has set a precedent that shames us all. Thank you.
Thank you for the multiple supplementaries. Clearly there's far too many there to answer here, so I'll take the commitment that by the end of, where are we, Thursday? By the end of next week, you'll get a full written answer.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Moving on to political balance now, I believe, can I have a proposal, please, by Councillor Baker? Yes. And to be seconded by Councillor Pauline Jones. Councillor Baker, would you like to speak?
I don't think there's anything necessary to say.
Councillor Jones. Anybody else wish to speak? In that case, his proposal, can I have a vote on the recommendation, please? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Carried. I'll just hope one. It's carried. Moving on to the appointment of chairman and vice chairman of council committees. Can I say that I intend to agree the nomination for all the appointments en bloc. To agree the nomination set out in Appendix 2 of the KBC sheets. Everybody in agreement? Okay. Can I have a vote on all the en bloc, please? Show of hands, thank you very much. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Similarly, appointment of panels, working groups, And I just also agree with nominations for all the appointments en bloc. Can I have your agreement, please? Flash your hands. Anybody against? Similarly, appointments to outside bodies. I have your agreement to that appointment. Changes to the Constitution. I believe we have a proposal of Councillor Swaby and Councillor Prudray to be the secretary. Councillor Swaby, would you like to speak?
I'll be very brief because apparently I took a bit long last time. These are a number of amendments that are brought about by changes in national law, and these are now being reflected into local constitution and are a general tidy up of other areas of the constitution. Recommend them to council.
Councillor Graham, please.
Nobody's asked me to second it, but I'm very happy to do so. I don't need to say anything.
Would you like to speak?
No.
Okay. All proposals, recommendations, can we agree that, please, with this report? Thank you. Show of hands. Thank you very much indeed. Well, with that, we've come to the end of our first council meeting. I ask all of you, including anybody that's up there in the gallery, to join us for a quick break, please. Thank you.